Hello, all, and welcome to the Triple H podcast, Happy Hour Hoops. We are your one-stop shop for enjoying a cold beverage and listening to our ice-cold basketball takes. We got you covered on everything NBA all the time. And today we have Spencer from the Fireside Nets podcast to talk some Brooklyn Nets basketball. How we doing, Jake and Spencer?
We're living, man. How we doing, Spence?
I'm not bad, man. What is it? Wednesday, Thursday night? I forget now. I can't. I have no idea. So yeah, it's just another working day, and got a few days off from some Nets basketball, but we play the Warriors on Saturday. So
sweet.
Yeah, that's a big game coming up with the. Now Durant's supposed to be back. He's supposed to be cleared Friday night, right? So he should be there in San Francisco for that.
We should have the big three. They should all be playing on Saturday, barring any crazy setbacks. You don't know with this team. Like whenever you think you're going to have the big three, something with Kyrie happens, something with Harden happens, and obviously we have all this mishigas with KD happening this week. So,
yeah, craziness. I'm sure this has been probably the most interesting year you've had covering the Nets at all, and we're going to get all into that. But first, I want to talk a little bit about you and just your journey. It's had to have been an interesting journey just being a Nets fan growing up. I know you started off as a New Jersey Nets fan, going into being a Brooklyn Nets fan. So how has it been like? How have you noticed the fan base kind of changing over the years? Like, what has your experience been like growing up as a New Jersey Nets fan and now, covering the Nets in Brooklyn yourself?
Yeah, I love this question. So the earliest I remember the Nets was literally after they acquired Jason Kidd. It was 2002. I was a 9-year-old kid, and I started to pay attention because my dad started bringing me to the games, and all of a sudden I saw this dude making the craziest passes I've ever seen, and that's how I fell in love with basketball, was those early years with Jason Kidd, Richard Jefferson, Keith Van Horn. I got to go to the finals games against San Antonio in the 2002-03 season. That was a ridiculous experience as a friggin' 10-year-old kid. But as you guys know, they lost, so I ended up crying at the end of the series. And then we had a few interesting years. I mean, we acquired Vince Carter in 2004, and him and Kidd were great together, but those finals windows were closed after that. They never made it back. Kidd eventually left the team, and after that, there were some dark years. Before those Darren Williams, Joe Johnson teams, you had the Devin Harris-led Nets. Marshawn Brooks at one point was the best player on that team. And then obviously you get to those 2010, 2011 seasons where we acquire the Darren Williams, we acquire Joe Johnson. And then 2013, 2014 was, supposed to be one of the biggest years in the history of the Nets. We got Paul Pierce, KG. Our starting center was Brook Lopez. I was in college at the time in Massachusetts. So I had all my Celtics buddies being like, yo, man, by the way, Donovan, I went to UMass Amherst.
Oh,
I didn't even know that.
I didn't know if you knew that, but I was at UMass while the Nets were good. So it was funny because all my Boston buddies were like, listen, Pierce and KG, they got some stuff left in the tank. They were dead wrong. Both those guys were washed. We went up against Miami in the playoffs, the real big three, and we got smoked. So that experiment failed pretty quickly. Another few years of misery. And then all of a sudden we get a coach named Kenny Atkinson, a few years with no draft picks, and he starts to build this culture. And, I was paying attention in the dog years, but the second we acquired D'Angelo Russell, we drafted Karis LeVert, we got Spencer Dinwiddie, I started to say, all right, let me pay closer attention to these guys because I think there's something there. And, last year was going back 2 years was the miraculous year where they got to the playoffs with D'Angelo Russell playing like an all-star. And the culture was changed. And then that summer, Sean Marks, the GM who had put everything together, he had a chance to go out and do something big. And something big was acquiring Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. So, these last 2 years with the big two and now with Harden, it's just, Jake, you said it best. It's been crazy. It's been a whirlwind because we went from Marshawn Brooks being the best player on this team in 07, 08, around that time period, to now where we have 3 of the top 10 players in the league.
Yeah.
That's insane, man. I hadn't really thought about like how crazy the Nets ride was until you just painted that picture beautifully. Like Like that's just absurd. Like just the amount of big moves that happen in that span of time, and that you once went through, like you said, Marshawn Brooks being the best player on your team, like that. That's just.
Well, I didn't even get to tell you guys about the move. So, my whole childhood is Continental Airlines. It's where the Giants play. It's where the Jets play. It's right in the Meadowlands area. And then all of a sudden we hear that they're moving to Brooklyn and the transition arena will be in Newark. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Newark. Newark is a pain in the butt to get to. Mm-hmm. It's just the parking's terrible. Actually, it's where the Devils play at Prudential Center. So, yeah, for 2 years, the Nets played in a hockey arena that wasn't really equipped for basketball. And then once they moved to Brooklyn, I'm sure you guys know this, we lost half the fan base. A lot of people who liked the New Jersey Nets either started rooting for whoever was the front runner that year, or they became a Knicks fan. And I didn't have a ton of friends who were Nets fans to begin with, but a lot of them were like, I don't want to watch anymore. They're in Brooklyn. I'm never going to go to any games. So that was a huge blow to the fan base. I don't think people realize how many fans the Nets lost when they transitioned to Brooklyn.
Mm. Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to touch on is like, it's, the Knicks Nets thing it's talked about a lot, especially with New York. And it was talked about a little bit with, New Jersey, New York was that when your experience growing up, and especially when that turned over, was it like a big, just always battling uphill against the Knicks, no matter how the hell they were doing?
See, I don't look at it as uphill because I can go to my Knicks friends and be like, hey guys, how many championships have you been to in your lifetime? Right. The Nets went to 2 in a row. And that was when we were like in those 9 to 11 years where we really started to understand and conceptualize basketball. Yeah. So, no, look, New York's always going to be a Knicks town. Unfortunately, most of northern Jersey is still a Knicks town. It's not really a Nets area anymore. But Knicks fans got nothing, man. Their big thing is Madison Square Garden is the mecca of New York City, and we had those years with Carmelo when we were really good, and that was it. In the past 20 years, you have the Carmelo Anthony show and Bupkis.
Right. You touched on, the relocation of the Brooklyn Nets. I got to ask you about the Barclays Center because, I've had a unique opportunity of being able to go there a couple of times to cover A-10 basketball. And I was kind of blown away by it. It's a nice facility. And I actually had the opportunity to watch Kyrie Irving's first game as a Brooklyn Net there. I think he put up 53 that night. I was sitting in the nosebleeds, but against the Timberwolves, that was an incredible game. I just wanted to, get your opinion on the Barclays because it's a really cool place.
I love Barclays Arena. I mean, they really kind of like, if you had told me 15 years ago what an arena would look like in the future, I would picture Barclays. It's just the food is all hipster food. It's not like your normal greasy stuff. You can get like real sushi, real Thai food there. Like real Mexican food. And it's incredible. I love the experience there. I love that it's not the most lit arena. They keep it pretty dark compared to if you go to Madison Square Garden, it's just a lot more lit up. I love Barclays Center, man. And the experience, look, a lot of people will complain about taking, 2 or 3 trains to get from Jersey to Brooklyn. I love the adventure, man. Bring some booze on the train. This is a happy hour podcast. Exactly. Have some nips before you watch Kyrie Irving and the Nets go to work, and get there and have a beer or two at the game. And the area around Barclays Center is really cool. A lot of cool restaurants, a lot of cool bars that I used to frequent before the pandemic started.
Yeah, they play a lot of Biggie and Jay-Z in the arena too, so that's a cool touch. I know they do Biggie night too with the Biggie bobbleheads and the Coogee jerseys. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed my time in the Barclays. That's a cool. But I know they do Biggie night too with the Biggie bobbleheads and the Coogee jerseys. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed my time.
Is it still going? What's going on here? Hello.
You got that
going on. Oh, okay, we're good now. All right. So yeah, let's keep it rolling here. Let's get into it with the team this year though, because this has got to be the most exciting. This has got to be one of the most exciting teams you've obviously watched and been a part of, following and everything this year. So since I'll go since the Harden trade, because we haven't spoken about the Harden trade at all, but since the Harden trade, what is this team, for your expectations, what did you think was going to happen? And have they met them? Have they exceeded the expectations, or have they disappointed you a little bit so far?
It's a loaded question. I mean, there's so many different moving parts to this. So If I had to give you an answer, I'd say they're slightly disappointing, but what's happening is expected. And you basically traded away all your front court depth for James Harden, which is great. Harden is an all-star. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's a former MVP. The list of his accolades are up there with the top 5 players in the league. Unfortunately, he has not won the championship yet. I think that's why he wanted to leave Houston. He didn't think that whatever they were doing, he would sniff a championship in the West, so he decided to come out East. I know the Nets were on his list of trade destinations, so he gets traded. We lose Jared Allen. For those Nets fans who have really paid attention these last few years, Jared Allen has improved drastically every single year, and he was really the anchor of the Nets defense. And when we lost him, I said to everybody, DeAndre Jordan is not going to play the entire game. He is not going to give effort for 4 quarters. He is someone who can play 20 minutes and then he's done. And that's what we've learned. Outside of DeAndre Jordan, we really don't have a big man. Reggie Perry was our 57th pick in this draft, and we just demoted him to the G League. So clearly he's not someone who's going to get big minutes with us. We've already signed Norvell Pell and Noah Vonleh this past week. Basically what the Nets are, we're something that's leaking, and we're trying to clog up all these holes temporarily, but we haven't fixed the main issue, which is our defense stinks, Jake. Now, I've been negative and pessimistic ever since I started this, so let's get to the good. James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, they work together. They do. Offensively, they're the best, most gifted team in the league. They've been putting up more points than almost anybody in the league, and I think they're great at taking turns. You know, you've seen in some fourth quarters, it's going to be the Kyrie Irving show. He's going to get that mid-range going. He'll get a few pick and rolls. Kyrie's looking to shoot more, whereas James Harden, and we've had, him take over some fourth quarters too. James is just looking to make the right basketball play. So whether that's a wide open behind the back pass to Jeff Green, or he's taking it to the rack, both those guys do a great job at taking turns, on who's going to handle the ball this possession. And then you have KD, who doesn't need the ball in his hands. KD can just get the ball, spot up, hit any shot on the court. So they've worked offensively. Defensively, it's been really tough to watch them. They've been really disappointing on defense.
Do you think there's, is the answer on this roster, like, is it effort on the defensive end, or do they just need some more bodies on there? Because last night it looked like last night had to have been at least a good sign to the defense, but that also could have just been the Pacers shitting the bed in a game. But it looked like last night a little bit that they were locking in a little more, and Steve Nash seemed like he was really happy with the effort, but it's got to be more than just effort, right? Like, it's not like these guys are just going to be able to like turn it on, the switch on defensively.
I think effort's a big part of it. We've all played pickup basketball. When you're playing with 2 or 3 ball dominant guys, you're not touching the ball a lot on offense. And sometimes you don't want to play as hard on defense. And I think that's kind of what you see with this team. You have guys like Landry Shamet, Joe Harris. We're going on the bench, TLC. In the last few years, they're used to having the ball in their hands. They're used to making plays, hitting shots. Now it's more of is Harden or Kyrie going to take it, or are they going to hit me with the pass? And I think that'll kind of hurt teams in regards to how they give their effort on defense. Now, it's not all effort. A lot of it is focus. The Nets are one of the league leaders in turnovers. They turn the ball over a lot. They're not careful with it. You don't see that from championship teams. The Lakers, the Raptors a few years ago, the Warriors, they did not turn the ball over. They were highly efficient. So that it's effort, it's the turnovers, it's the lack of they haven't had a lot of time playing together, right? You insert a guy like James Harden in the middle of the season, it's going to take him some time, a few weeks to really get acclimated with this roster. And if you guys have listened to what Sean Marks has said, he's not done. He's still trying to make a few moves to acquire some big men. I've heard JaVale McGee's name floated out there. If the Cavaliers buy out Andre Drummond, he's someone who would be amazing for this team. But there's just a lot of things. Jake, you talked about the game last night against the Pacers. The Pacers are the one team in the NBA that looks like they want to play basketball less than anybody else. They just look like they did not want to be there last night. But the 3 games before that, the Nets lost all 3 to the Raptors, the Sixers, and then the Pistons. And when you're a championship, aspiring team, you can't lose 3 games in a row like that, especially to teams like the Pistons and the Raptors, who are having pretty down years.
Yeah, so the last 3 games, especially the one thing that, that's been a constant the last week, all the weirdness that happened with Kevin Durant in Friday's game, with him being not allowed to enter the game, then he was allowed to enter the game, and then he wasn't allowed in the game again. How much of a difference this is not how much of a difference does Kevin Durant make? Obviously, he's playing at an MVP level this year and has come back probably better than we've all expected him to look the whole year. But like, what is the team's ceiling when Kevin Durant is on the floor with these guys? And do you think that is there going to be an issue with all of them getting shots and getting the ball? Or is that something that's been overblown? Because it seems like right now, those three guys, the three stars especially, like they're ready to go to war with each other. Like they're just all ready. It looks like all those doubts that we put out in the air, at least about them, not having the ball and I'm not going to be able to share the ball with these three guys. It looks like they're all trying to make each other better and, play to their strengths when they're on the floor together.
Yeah. So to the second part of your question, you're absolutely right. I think the thing that people overlooked is these are three really smart basketball players. You have your guys. What's the guy? He's on the Lakers, or he was Dion Waiters. You have your Dion Waiters of the NBA that are just looking for their shot, and they're going to get up their shots. Kyrie, James Harden, Kevin Durant are not Dion Waiters. They're smart basketball players who would rather make the right basketball play than put up 30, 35 a game. It's amazing to see the adjustment that James Harden has made. A guy who was not shy in Houston to shoot, take it to the rack. Now he's really looking to pass. He's looking to find his teammates almost to a fault. A lot of Nets fans want James Harden to be more aggressive on offense, which is something you never thought you'd hear. And Jake, to your first question about Durant, the difference he makes, I think you can see it, right? The 3 games we lost were essentially without Durant. He played a quarter and a half in that Raptors game. But if you told me we were going to build a team with Kyrie and James Harden, I wouldn't be crazy about that team. I'd ask you who your other guys on the court are. You'd tell me. I'd be like, that team is a 6 seed in the East, right? Without KD, you're a 6 seed. You add KD in there, you are a 1 or 2 seed. KD is, if not a top 2 scorer in this league. I think personally he's the best scorer in the league. And he, of all things, he's a leader. He's a 2-time champion. And he gives guys like TLC, Landry Shamet, Joe Harris, he gives them confidence. The one thing that you love to see, and we've seen it a ton this year, is James Harden, KD, and Kyrie giving their teammates confidence. They know that they're not the stars of the teams, the other guys. They know that. They understand this is the big 3, but Joe Harris still has to hit shots for this team to be successful. TLC's got to come in off the bench and give us good minutes. Landry Shamet is a guy we traded for who's been very underwhelming the first quarter of the season. He started to pick it up a little bit recently, but these are guys that need to look up to somebody. And KD is that guy they're looking up to.
I gotta ask you about the DJ Harden and Kyrie incident from the other night, because you talked about DeAndre Jordan. He will play good minutes, but he won't necessarily give you over 20 minutes of full effort. That whole debacle that happened during the timeout with Harden and DeAndre Jordan was involved. Did you kind of see like a little bit of flashbacks with Harden in Houston? With it's happened with CP3, Westbrook, Dwight Howard in years past. Did that look similar to that, or do you think that was kind of the leaders of the team just getting on DJ's ass a little bit, or did that worry you from a chemistry standpoint?
Well, I'm gonna answer your question with another question. Are you and Jake Donovan, are you guys on Nets Twitter at all? Do you follow what they're talking about at all times?
Not at all times, but I definitely follow some personalities in Nets Twitter for sure. Yeah.
So if you follow personalities on Nets Twitter, you would know that DeAndre Jordan is public enemy number 1 when it comes to Nets fans. I mean, look, I've watched every single game this year, and the amount of times where I want to scream at the TV and throw something are so much higher than the amount of times where I'm like, that was a good play by DeAndre Jordan. I don't say that enough. I haven't said that at all this year. So, Nets fans, once we lost Jared Allen, we lost our anchor. Insert DeAndre Jordan, and he is a revolving door. Every team that plays us gets anything they want inside. They get every single offensive rebound. And a lot of the times you look at DeAndre Jordan, it almost looks like he's not trying. 2 nights ago against the Pistons, I tweeted on Fireside Nets. I said, if anybody can pull 2 minutes of clips of DeAndre Jordan just giving 10% effort, it's going to be a really funny video. Because it's just like you just see it every other play. He's not going up for a rebound. He's letting a guy hit a layup in his face who's 4 inches shorter than him. It's mind-boggling. So in a sense, I think that his teammates have seen that too. And I don't know if they waited to say something, but I think that night was it against Detroit, right?
Yeah.
I think that night was just everybody from Harden to Nash just boiling over and being like, look, we understand you're not 25, 26. We get you're an older player in this league, but you are our center. You are the anchor of our defense. You are the guy we depend on at the rim. You need to play better. You need to get more boards. The intensity and effort, it needs to be there. And the one thing you saw last night, first of all, DeAndre Jordan got a double-double last night, 12 points, 13 rebounds. That was like, I think he's only got like 3 or 4 of those this year. But you saw the effort. You saw a few block shots. You saw a monster alley-oop from Kyrie to him where he just cocked it back with one hand and slammed it.
That was vintage DJ right there.
That was vintage. Someone wrote that was 2014 Clippers DeAndre Jordan right there. Shout out Matthew Brooks. I think he wrote that. But no, it's it was like night and day. Yesterday being the one time we saw him put in effort. I wouldn't put it as much on Harden. I mean, if it's him and Kyrie out there and KD's not there, they got to be the leaders. When KD comes back, Harden can be a little less vocal. But I was happy to see Steve Nash go at him too, because I think Nash has kind of babied this team a little bit.
Yeah. So another guy that we want to talk about here that, I mean, you can talk about, especially with the way Steve Nash has kind of handled the situation, is all three of us, the one connection all three of us definitely have is Kyrie Irving has played for all three of our teams. And we all have had very different, I think I definitely have had the best experience out of it. I mean, and Dunny easily has had the worst experience out of it. But you want to just talk about the Kyrie Irving experience a little bit of how it's been this year? I mean, it's been a little bit up and down, but I feel like right now it's kind of the best you're getting out of Kyrie, at least from my perspective, from what I've seen from Kyrie. This is like peak Kyrie. This is what you want out of him, kind of the way he's been playing lately and carrying himself.
From the basketball standpoint, you're right. Since he's returned from his hiatus, he's been great. I like what he said in their losses. I've agreed with what he said. I think that when he talks to the media, 85% of the time he's saying the right thing. There's 15% of the time he'll slip up. He'll say something that probably he shouldn't say. But it's been a roller coaster. I mean, sort of like this team. Nobody saw him just taking a step away from the game for whatever reasons he did. And I'm someone who I will give someone the benefit of the doubt always until they prove me wrong. Mm-hmm. Kyrie has been close to losing my trust on numerous occasions, just because when you're not transparent about what's going on in your life, and then, something happens and we see a video of you surface at a party and you're not, little things like that, they got to irk fans, because we expect to see him every night. We expect to see him in a Nets uniform if he's healthy or if he doesn't have anything, wrong in his life. I understand players take time away from the game. That's totally understandable. So for me, he's teetered on that line of, I can't trust this guy. But Jake, I think you said it best. Since he's returned from that hiatus, since he's been back, he's handled himself very well, and he's been balling out, guys. Yeah. I mean, he might be the best point guard in the East right now. I don't know. I know. I think Curry's the best point guard in the game. Kyrie might be the best point guard in the East.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. Like a game like last night, where he's just like some of the shot making ability is just unreal. Like, and you're just sitting there and you're like, I would like if this dude could just do this consistently night in, night out, and you don't have to deal with the shit. Like, it would be amazing. But he comes with all the everything. Like, you get the whole Kyrie experience, no matter what.
As someone who played point guard growing up, I mean, his game, it's just so beautiful. He can finish around the rim. His mid-range game is deadly. I think he's right up there with Durant in terms of accuracy and efficiency from the mid-range. He takes high percentage shots. He got to the line 17 times yesterday. He was 17 of 17 from the line. And when he needs to dish the ball, he can pass it. I mean, he had the alley-oop to Jordan yesterday. He had an early fast break 3 to pass to Landry Shamet, who hit the 3. That's the one area where I actually have been disappointed with James Harden. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. James Harden only shoots threes or takes floaters or layups. James Harden does not have a mid-range game. And that's the big difference between him and Kyrie, because when Harden gets it, you're thinking, okay, one of 3 things. 3, he's going to shoot a floater, he's going to pass it. With Kyrie, you really don't know. That's what makes Kyrie so exciting. Is he going to do some dazzling spin move and get to the rim and go under reverse? Is he going to step back, pull back 3? Is he going to hit the elbow jumper in somebody's face? He's got a bag of tricks, man. And it's fun to watch him go to work. Yesterday was one of those performances where you just kind of tipped your cap and said, all right, Kyrie, I see you.
Yeah, and that's been I like the piece you touched on with Harden there, because I mean they kind of beat it out of him in Houston, right? Like he wasn't allowed to take mid ranges at all, but he's been perfect. Like seeing him come in, it's kind of been perfect watching him come in. He's just been able to he's really just taking back and filling in the spots they need and letting Kyrie do what he needs to do and letting Kyrie go cook. And Harden's still been getting his too. I mean, the rebounding, like he's just been doing. It's like he's like the versatile like Swiss Army knife of the team, which I didn't know if he had it in him or not. I had faith that he had it in him, that, you know, Houston was just kind of, he was doing what he needed to do there. And I had faith that he'd come in and do it. And it looks like he's been balling out and fitting in well there. So before we let you go here, we have to ask you the question on everybody's mind. Is this team a title contender? Can they win the title this year, right now? Or is it going to, or are we going to have to wait till they fill this roster out a little more?
Yeah, right now, I don't think they're a title contender. You can't play this way on defense night in and night out when you do have the big three and win a title. The amount of close games they've lost this year, especially in the beginning of the season, and then when they acquired Harden, they lost that first game in double overtime to the Cavs. They've lost to the Wizards twice. They've lost to the Charlotte Hornets. They lost to the Hawks. There's a lot of teams in the East that they've lost to in close game situations, and that's one of two things. It's you're not doing what you need to do on defense, and even though you have three superstars, you're not closing the game out on offense. So I believe that the big three will fix the offense problem. I'm not worried about them down the stretch in games. I think they're going to figure out that flow. You know, some nights it's going to be Kyrie, some nights it's going to be KD. But I think moving forward, like that game against the Clippers, that was perfectly executed for them to close that game out against the Clippers in the final moments. And then on the defensive side, you can't win with this defense. You need to get one or two guys. I'm not, Nash has really not given Norvell Pell or Noah Vonleh, these two new guys. They haven't gotten minutes. A guy that Nets fans have been waiting for and clamoring for since we drafted him is Nick Claxton. He should be back in about 3 to 4 weeks. He's recovering from a shoulder injury, and I believe an injury in his meniscus, which is the shoulder area. You guys want to
meniscus knee? Yeah.
So okay, it's two. It's the shoulder injury and it's the knee meniscus. Okay, I wanted to say knee, but I was thinking like, does he have anything? Yeah, no, it is tough. he should be back. He's a very, very lanky 6'10", has springboards for legs, can help us out on defense, can help us get rebounds. But he's 2 or 3 years in the league. He's very young. So you still need, I don't know if JaVale McGee's a guy you go out and get. I don't know if you need a Daniel Tice, like someone like that on the Celtics. I'm a Tice fan, Donovan. I watch a lot of Boston basketball.
I didn't think anyone outside of Celtics Twitter appreciated Daniel Tice. I've been calling for this to he's been so good, especially since the new year.
If the Nets had a Daniel Tice on the roster, Donovan, they wouldn't have the defensive problems they have.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
I just traded Tice in an article I wrote the other day. So that's my opinion on Daniel Tice.
The world needs to put some respect on Daniel Tice's name. That's for sure. I'm glad at the end of this. That's where we are.
That's what comes out of this.
This is Kyrie,
James Harden, and Daniel Tice.
I love this Nets team as currently constructed, but they ain't winning the title unless they make some moves. That's just the way it is, guys.
I agree.
Fair enough. All right, Spencer, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks,
we appreciate you giving us the breakdown on all Nets basketball. Anytime you are welcome at Happy Hour Hoops. Go ahead and plug whatever you need to plug here, sir, and then we will get you going. And thank you again for everything, man.
Yeah, nothing crazy. I'm the host of the Fireside Nets podcast. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Fireside Nets. Also, we have a YouTube page up. You can follow my personal Twitter at Mr. Sah, SAH 42. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. Donovan, always happy to talk to a UMass alum.
Yeah, I
Jake,
love that, dude.
Buffalo Jake, you and I go way back. We're homies, and I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, bro. Can't wait to have you on again, man. Thanks again. All right, here, before we bring on our boy Joe Conzi Jr. to talk some Knicks basketball, Dunny, you had one more thing to say about Kevin Durant, I think, before Spenny got off there.
I do, and it has to do with Kevin Durant's jump shot. And I got to say, the only thing more silky smooth than Kevin Durant's jump shot right now, Jake, it's got to be my balls. And that is because Happy Hour Hoops and Trainwreck Sports is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below the waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Join the movement for all your below the waist grooming needs. And, you just can't get anything like the Manscaped products. I'm wearing their t-shirt right now. It's comfortable as hell. So is their underwear. And, I feel like all the time, you're looking for that right razor that doesn't leave nicks or scratches. The Lawnmower 3.0, it's really great. It's the smoothest razor on the market right now. You're not looking for those bulky razors that'll give you hand cramps or you're trying to shave down there. It's lightweight. It does the job. It's smooth. And my favorite feature about it has to be the little headlight it has on it, because I don't care if you have, the Instagram light fixtures in your bathroom. I don't care if golden hour sun is coming through the window. It can still be dark down there when you're trying to trim the family jewels, but not with the Lawnmower 3.0. It's got a light on it. It makes it nice and easy. So, all the Happy Hour Hoops listeners out there, I think you should get yourself some Manscaped. And you can get 20% off plus free shipping on Manscaped right now if you use the code TRAINWRECK at manscaped.com. That is TRAINWRECK at manscaped.com.
Awesome. All right. So time to finally bring on. We've been trying to do this for like a month now. It is time for the one, the only, Joe Conzi. Conzi, how the hell are we doing tonight, buddy?
Boys, what is going on? How's it going?
We've been trying to do this since we started out. You're finally on Happy Hour Hoops. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. And I just needed a couple weeks to see my boys in blue and orange. See what's going on, get the lay of the land, and figure out what type of team this was. So I wanted to make sure I came prepared, or I came correct, as they say in my hometown of Rochester. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate it, and you guys do great work, and we love having you a part of Trainwreck Sports. So thanks for I don't know if we found you or you guys found us, but somehow we found each other. So
we found each other. That's all that mattered. We found each other. We appreciate you coming on, brother.
Sure,
so we started out with Spenny before. We're talking about his timeline of being a New Jersey Nets fan into a Brooklyn Nets fan. So I want you to go through your New York Knicks fandom and give us the breakdown of the last 20 years of Knicks fandom to right now, to this moment.
So, when I was growing up, when I was real little, I was a huge Charles Barkley fan, and I'll get to how I became a Knicks fan. But I love Charles Barkley from the time since I knew what basketball was. You guys know me as a big hockey guy, but basketball was always something that I wasn't good at, but I loved watching it. I realized that Charles Barkley never won anything, so I have just the same amount of rings as Charles Barkley has. So I figured, it's time to pick a different team. But what team would I root for? Because for basketball, allegiances were never that big for me. When it comes to Sabres and Bills, like, I'm not jumping ship. Well, I'll never forget it. I think it was in '99, Allen Houston. I loved Allen Houston. Every time I bring up that name, someone goes, "Ugh, Allen Houston." I'm like, Allen Houston was like my hero, man. That guy was such a good player for the Knicks back in the late '90s, early 2000s, that I fell in love with that team. I remember I went and saw Space Jam 2, and I loved Patrick Ewing way back in the day too. So, I started to follow the Knicks a little bit more. And then I had a crush on some girl in 9th grade that happened to be a Knicks fan. So like my Knicks fandom kind of took off from there. And ever since then, majority of my money went towards buying like these cool hats and Carmelo Anthony jerseys and Amari Stoudemire jerseys and all that kind of stuff. So I think it also helped too that sorry, Dunny, I dislike the Celtics more than any other team in the NBA. So I think that helps too. So it kind of just started off like I just fell in love with those Allen Houston teams. And, when you played like NBA Showtime, like that's the team I played with. So yeah, that's how I ended up in Knicks fandom. I have so much to say for what's happened from 2009 till now. that, like, if you guys want me to get into it, I'd be happy.
Oh yeah, no, I would love it. We need the whole breakdown. Spenny gave us the whole breakdown, so we need the whole breakdown from you too.
Yeah.
So this team, those late 90s, early 2000s teams are so far, they're so behind me. And I'll never forget, it was around 2008, I think. Stephon Marbury, the Knicks bought him out of his contract, and then like some videos surfaced online of him eating Vaseline. And that was like the first like thing that I looked at, and I was like, geez, well, I root for a franchise with a former Vaseline eater, not a former NBA All-Star, Stephon Marbury, who has his own clothing line. So that started with that. But where it really started to break my heart was in June 25th of 2009. Knicks had the 8th pick in the NBA draft, and then Stephen Curry goes 7th. So I'm like, okay, here we are. So now we missed out on Stephen Curry. Then the whole Isaiah Thomas debacle, and as you go on, the one of the things I'm a huge Tracy McGrady fan. I've always loved Tracy McGrady, but the Knicks traded assets and a first-round pick, in the rights to swap first-round picks to Houston for Tracy McGrady to clear space for LeBron James. Now, I don't know about you guys, but going into that summer, I think we all thought each one of our teams had a shot at LeBron James. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, my team was losing him, so I was a little bit more distraught about it.
so you knew I'm not getting LeBron James back.
Yes, I was very aware.
Donnie's over there probably going, yeah, LeBron James will look good in a Celtics uniform. And I'm over here going, he's coming to New York, because the Knicks were like, we're going to make you the first $1 billion athlete. We're going to make you a billionaire athlete. And then LeBron James has that big whole thing, and he goes, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. And I just sat there and my heart sunk, and I'm like, wow, like they really just did that. So what do? They go and they get microfracture knee surgery guy, Amari Stoudemire, all-star. I was happy with it, but what they paid for him and the longevity of his career, I mean, at that point, was he worth over $100 million over time? I mean, no, I don't.
Hindsight, he wasn't worth it, right? But that first year, I mean, aside from the money, because he was overpaid for the league just in general at that time. But like, how did you must have been like at least a little bit excited just because you missed out on other free agents, and then like you bring in at least a name like Stoudemire, and he started, even though the Knicks team wasn't great to start that season in 2010, if I remember correctly, he was putting up MVP like numbers when he first got there.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about it was most people who follow like Mike D'Antoni's coaching career knows that in New York we call him Mike Antoni because he never plays defense, so there's no D. So he really, I think when he got there, it was like, well, who's going to play point guard? Well, they got Raymond Felton, which that was like Raymond Felton had 2 like really good career years. Shout out UNC fans out there who remember Raymond Felton, who played 2 solid stellar seasons with the Knicks in a pick and roll offense. And then, he kind of fell off and ate a bunch of cheeseburgers and never played again. So, there's that. But the part that really chokes me up about this team, that really aggravates me, is yes, I did go out and get my Amari Stoudemire jersey. I was all in on this team. This team had me firing all cylinders. It was finally, this team's made it. We're going to compete, so on and so forth. Well, Carmelo Anthony comes out of the woodwork in fall of 2010, and he goes, hey, I don't want to play in Denver anymore. And Denver's like, oh, okay, well, at the end of the season, we'll let you walk. We'll figure out. We'll talk to you. And he's like, no, like, I don't want to play here anymore. So what do the Knicks do? Knowing that he intended on signing with the Knicks, what did they do? They trade for him. 4 starters, including Gallinari, Wilson Chandler, 2 first-round picks. There was 2 other players in that deal too for Carmelo Anthony. So, and then the Knicks get swept in the playoffs by your boys, Donnie. So, like, as a Knicks fan, I'm sitting there and I'm like, hold on a second. So let's go back. You cleared space for LeBron James. You didn't get him. You got Amari Stoudemire. You were running a good pick and roll offense. Raymond Felton was having a career year. Wilson Chandler was sniping. Gallinari looked like the player we thought we knew that we drafted. And then we go and we trade away like everything under the sun for Carmelo Anthony. Fine. Okay. But as a Knicks fan, you're going, well, how is this going to work now? Because now you got Stoudemire, Anthony, and now what do you do? And actually, I think Raymond Felton was in that deal too. Now what do you do? Well, Carmelo's an ISO player. So how does this offense work? Well, it didn't really work. So then comes Linsanity, which I thought that was the most incredible,
It was lit.
6 months of my life as a Knicks fan, because after that,
So
he was a D-League fringe player, stayed on Landry Fields' couch, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And,
Landry Fields. Wow. Jesus.
ultimate hype man, Landry.
Landry
Yes.
Fields, he was good for one season. Dude was just knocking him down from corner and everything.
Unbelievable handshakes too.
Unbelievable handshakes. And then the rumors start floating around in New York City, because you know how New York is, that Anthony's uncomfortable with Lynn being this player. And what are the Knicks going to do? Are they going to pay him? Are they going to trade Carmelo? So then in February, D'Antoni goes, I'm resigning because I can't deal with this. And it's discussed, about that. So, that Anthony's unhappy with Mike D'Antoni, which is kind of weird because, correct me if I'm wrong, but who was his coach when he played in Houston?
Yeah.
Mike D'Antoni. And
Exactly.
what happened to Carmelo Anthony when he played in Mike D'Antoni's offense?
Didn't go very well for him.
Hot
there.
garbage.
It did not
okay?
go well.
And I love Carmelo Anthony. I do. I really
Me too,
do.
yeah.
But it's just hot garbage. Just him and D'Antoni just never worked. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit, okay? Because I think it's important that that you guys know where this starts to take a turn for me. Okay. So I don't really care about, I don't care about Tyson Chandler too much. I'm like, okay, J.R. Smith, maybe that's one guy I keep. The Knicks hire Derek Fisher with no coaching experience. He's fired, blah, blah, blah. We go on and on and on. What really bugs me about the franchise as we're getting towards 2015 and 2016 is James Dolan, is the inconsistencies of James Dolan as an owner. And what he did to Carmelo Anthony, I will never forgive that guy for. How the hell do you hold Carmelo Anthony hostage? Did it seem like when Phil Jackson was there, and it seemed like they were holding Carmelo Anthony hostage? It's like, just let him go. I know you paid him all this money, but you're not using him properly. He's not responding to your coaching staff. Let him go. So you sit there as a Knicks fan and you're like, geez, we're the laughing stock of the NBA. We're supposed to be the basketball mecca, but here we are. Cool. Yeah. Whatever. The part that gets me is when Charles Oakley is kicked out of a Knicks game.
Yeah.
And it gets so bad that they involve Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw The Last Dance, but I don't think that Michael Jordan was so high on Charles Oakley, was he?
No.
Okay, so you pick the one guy that can settle it all, and you get Michael Jordan involved. It just so as a Knicks fan coming into the season, on top of losing out on Zion Williamson, love RJ Barrett, but he's not Zion.
And especially the whole year, ESPN was like, Zion's going to the Knicks. Like it was a done deal until it wasn't, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like Knicks fans are sitting at bars going, this is going to be great for the NBA. He's going to be the poster child. Adam Silver can't screw this up. Rig it. Let him go to New York because it's the best thing I think could happen. Nope. Can't have anything good that year. Okay, cool. He goes to New Orleans, and let's face it, he's good. He's a great player. He's dominant.
Yeah.
But don't you think, I understand the situation, the culture of the Knicks at that time. Okay. But don't you think at that time, him going to New Orleans maybe was a little bit detrimental to his career? Not saying the Knicks wouldn't have squandered that or anything, but when you look at it, he had a chance to go to New York, could have played in the big city, but he goes to New Orleans.
Yeah.
Well, then what happens with Zion? He gains weight. He's out of shape. He gets hurt.
Gumbo is good, man. I don't know if you've been to New Orleans, but that gumbo is different, man. It's different.
And I'm starting to get ranty here because I'm starting to get aggravated, but it gets better, guys, because here we are. We go into the second draft after that, okay, we might get LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball as a New York Knick would be the greatest thing for this franchise. We'd have RJ Barrett. We'd have LaMelo Ball. Nope. Charlotte gets it.
We'll be topping.
But it brought you to this point here now this year with this Knicks team right now. And they've been exceeding, I think, everybody's expectations, right? You're definitely exceeding your own expectations. So let's get into this year's Knicks team a little bit. And let's get into the move that just happened recently. And last night we got to see a little bit of it. They traded for Derrick Rose this week to bring him back with Tibbs, bring him back with William Wesley, which was the big thing for Derrick Rose. And I mean, that's the thing that I've been really excited about for the Knicks is bringing in Worldwide Wes is, I mean, dude, I've been hearing about Worldwide Wes. He's like a mythical figure in my life. All I've heard from everybody that I follow, if I follow LeBron my whole life, Jay-Z, Drake, Worldwide Wes has always been somewhere around these guys. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And now he's running the Knicks or helping run the Knicks. And now Derrick Rose is I've known him since 8th grade. I'm so happy to be with this guy. So what do you think about this team as they're currently constructed, and what do you think about the Derrick Rose move as of recently as well?
Well, I think the biggest problem with the Knicks was finding identity. As I mentioned earlier, they had a pick and roll offense. So it was like, okay, now we know what they're running. Well, then they go and get Carmelo and it's ISO basketball and he's not buying into the system. But I think now, holy crap, guys, like Julius Randle coming out like the regional manager over here, just letting it rain. Like I remember texting you guys saying, Julius Randle can play basketball again? Like all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you got him. You got Emmanuel Quickley, who's playing incredible too, getting space on the floor, shooting real well. Obi Toppin, he's not getting like top minutes yet, but he's ascending to that.
I love Obi Toppin.
I love Obi Toppin. But I think the key cog in this whole wheel is the safety net, and that's Mitchie Rob. Mitchell Robinson is just they call him the nest monster, Robinson block. This guy is the centerpiece, I think, for this Knicks as far as playing in the defensive zone. He helps he's the glue that holds this lineup, together. And I really like the way he's been playing, which with these guys kind of coming on strong, the Emmanuel Quickleys, Obi Toppin, and the addition of Derrick Rose, I think that makes Julius Randle expendable. Okay?
Oh, okay.
I really do. And we'll get more into that, but I think the big thing with that is the Knicks have been eyeing Victor Oladipo and Bradley Beal for so long that they've been trying to get these guys in to play basketball, with them for quite some time. They just haven't had it work out. But I think with Julius Randle coming out hot out of the gates, I think you have that option now where you might be able to bring him in. So as far as Derrick Rose goes, though, Derrick Rose has been one of my favorite players since he entered the NBA, and his knees have been shot ever since he went down early on in his career. But if you notice throughout his career, his best seasons were with who? Thibodeau.
Tibbs, yeah.
So I think Derrick Rose, and he said it in a New York Post article, that they're like the odd couple. No matter where he ends up, Derrick Rose plays his best basketball with Thibodeau. In Chicago, he goes to Minnesota and has his first 50-plus point game of his career. And then he comes out the other night off the bench, and he just looked like he really looked like the old Derrick Rose, just going out there having fun and shooting, lights out. But let's think about this too, guys. Who the hell wants to go to New York? Derrick Rose did. He was like, it's good for my career.
Yeah,
I like that, and I completely agree with what Meerkat said. I like Kenneth Faried. I would take Kenneth Faried to New York tomorrow. But
it's so different from because Derrick Rose was in New York before, and I'm sure you guys have seen that clip where he gets the call from his agent and he's in tears. And, he never wanted to leave Chicago. He kind of thought that was like almost ruining his career. And it's weird years later going back to New York, and it's like almost like it's rejuvenating his career now, even though he's a few years older. But like you mentioned, he's playing with Tibbs. He has this young group around him. He can come off the bench and still be an impact player. And if this team were to make the playoffs at, towards the bottom of the East, I think they could still upset, a team with a veteran like Rose. And if they do make a move, as you say, and they move a guy like Randle, bring in another superstar, I mean, it kind of looks like the pieces are aligning a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's one thing you got to look at too. Back to the Derrick Rose situation, he didn't show up to, to the game to practice. I think he just was out of it. He had family issues, a lot going on. But I was on a podcast with our coworker Dwayne, Two Goalies, One Mic, and we were talking to Saad Youssef, who covered the Mavericks, the Dallas Mavericks, and now covers the Dallas Stars. And we talked a lot about coaching and how coaches nowadays are more like sports psychologists than ever. And Phil Jackson was kind of like the first guy to kind of show people that you can let Dennis Rodman go party in Las Vegas and he's still going to get me 15 blocks and 15 rebounds a game because he's an animal. Mm-hmm. So I think when you look at the Derrick Rose situation, I think Derrick Rose is at a point in his career where he knows he's not the centerpiece of a rebuild, but he knows that he has probably 4 or 5 years left in his career. Where does he want to go? To the coach that utilizes him the most and can get the most out of him. So I think Tibbs is one of those guys that he trusts. You got to remember, he came, Rose came up in Chicago, and he's a very tough-minded guy, and it seems like Tibbs has his ear, and I think that's important with these veterans. And Donnie and Jake, you guys said it in the text message the other day. What did Derrick Rose do when he arrived in New York? Immediately texted the younger guys. Yep. Quickly texted Obi Top and said, "Hey guys, let's get to work." Like that is what I'm saying is you get the right pieces in place, you set your foundation. Now you just move your players around. Also, last point I'll make: Nerlens Noel and Austin Rivers. Like if you told me those two guys were going to be on the Knicks and actually producing, not saying like all-star level, but above average, I'd have told you you're crazy. Austin Rivers is was the laughing stock of the NBA. Not a bad player. And then Nerlens Noel. So it's just kind of like, here we are, Knicks fans. Like we may not win much, but we might knock Boston out of an 8 seed. Who knows?
But like you said, it's the culture too. Like you said, it's just like there's an identity now with this team. Like they're like Tibbs gave them that too. They're gonna come out, they're gonna battle. Like they're not gonna go down. It's not like these normal Knicks teams that you just like. It's all the pomp and circumstance, everything around them. Like this, they're just gonna go out and ball. And I feel like that's the kind of identity that a New York Knicks basketball team needs. Just go out and grind and ball. And everybody, like, that's the thing about Knicks fans is they will appreciate an 8 seed more than any other fan base in the NBA will. Like if there's an 8 seed Knicks team, no matter what the year is, like the Garden will be packed and those guys will be heroes on those teams for like the rest of time. I truly believe that. Not even just because of how it's been lately. I think that's just in general. Like I think that's just how Knicks fandom just is for these kinds of teams.
Yeah, and I think, you look back at the coaching staffs they had, like Derek Fisher was a mistake. And with all due respect to Derek Fisher, I always liked him as a player, but never had any coaching experience.
Yeah.
I think Fizdale got the raw end of the deal there on that. I don't think that's Fizdale's problem by any means. I just think it's a bad time. Is it Mike Woodson? Yep. Like at that time, again, great coach. That time, Jeff Hornacek, like another guy. So I think they've got a guy in place that's been through it. He was the GM and the coach of the Timberwolves. So I think you've got that. There's also rumors floating around too, not soft rumors like that. But Jimmy Butler was like, "Are we having a reunion or what?"
Yeah, that was
like I thought about that for a
little bizarre.
Give me Karl Anthony Towns right now. I mean, I don't know if they got along, but like, I'll take Butler or I'll take Karl Anthony Towns right now.
So that's the rumor. That's the thing. The big picture, like Galaxy Rain rumor that's always been out there, right? With the World Wide West and all those kinds of things, is that they're going to get the Kentucky guys in there, and that they're kind of eyeing down Towns and eyeing down Booker for in the future run. But besides that, that's kind of the next point I wanted to touch on is what's next for this kind of rebuild. Like, is it going to be a quick? You already said that you wouldn't think that Randall is a guy that they're going to keep long term, but Quickly and Barrett, especially RJ Barrett. Like I wouldn't say I'm a Duke fan anymore. I was a Duke fan when I was younger. I'm not really a college basketball fan of any team anymore, but I followed them enough to watch RJ Barrett and know like that the dude's a fucking baller no matter what, and that he was on the short end of the stick coming out of college no matter what because he was next to Zion. So with those kinds of guys, with Barrett, with Quickly, the development of those guys, do they need to do more? Do they need to accelerate this, or should they keep on the path they're going and just kind of hope that these guys end up turning into the stars that they could be?
I think if the opportunity presents itself, you always have to make a deal that's going to make your team better. I don't care if it's, like, I don't even care if it's back in the 90s and like the Knicks were going to trade for Michael Jordan at 42 years old. Like if that makes you a better team, then it does. I think my concern right now with RJ Barrett, and I love him, but I think you've seen his ceiling and I think you've seen his floor. We haven't seen the middle yet. We haven't seen him keep on easy street. I would be content with him having like 15 and 10. Or 20 and 10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think I don't necessarily think that RJ Barrett, I think he's been put in a situation where Knicks fans were expecting him to be this like superstar, which I think he's still like an all-star caliber. I just don't think he's the guy that you're going to put this on your back, and run your way to the finals. They're going to need more pieces, but I think this Knicks team, and I think Thibodeau is the perfect person for this, is when they were shunned by KD and Kyrie Irving, I was actually aggravated that KD and Kyrie Irving had the balls to come out and say Brooklyn was like the basketball mecca. Okay, cool. Awesome. Yes. You got all these basketball fans in Brooklyn. I get it. Jay-Z was a great marketer about it, whatever. But don't sit here and tell me that you wouldn't want to play for the Knicks. It's been every child's dream to play for the New York Knicks since anybody, since before time. Okay. But you look at that Brooklyn team, and I got to say, man, I am so glad that they don't have Kyrie Irving. And with all due respect to Kyrie Irving, whatever mental issues that he has going on, I don't know. I don't want to say he has mental health issues, but whatever he has going on, he needs to just take a step back from basketball for a little bit and figure it out. And I'm glad that the Knicks don't have to deal with that anymore. those kind of players.
Well,
So
and that's the thing too with the Knicks. Like, if he was on the Knicks doing this, like it would be as much as it was blown up when it happened. Like with the Knicks, it would have been every single day, like 24/7 cycle.
Right. But I think what it comes back to is I like that the Knicks have kind of an identity of what they're going to do. I think you can anticipate the type of offenses that Thibodeau wants to run, and it's similar to those Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, Boozer type Carlos Boozer type offenses. With a little defense here. And I think when you saw it in Minnesota, I just think the issue with Minnesota at the time was you're going against some pretty stealthy, aggressive, really good shooting teams. But I think as the season goes on, Giannis, the Greek god, he is he's beatable. We've seen it. I think Boston's well coached. But Donnie, you've seen it. The Knicks can take care of business there. And then the Knicks go and they beat Golden State. Just out of the blue, just says, hey, we're a hardworking team. So I think that this blue collar type basketball in New York is going to bode well for them moving forward. So
yeah, I like that. And as you were talking there, it kind of just popped in my head. And it's kind of like, I like the role that it is like, because the Nets are like the superstar team and the Knicks is like the underdog, like grimy, like earn it team. Like it fits for the Knicks. Like that's what I think about when I think of the Knicks. Like I think about those 90s teams. Like those were grinders. Like it wasn't like, I mean, Ewing was a superstar, but it's not like it was a team like full of like a super team or anything. It was a team that went out and earned it and just battled every single night. That's the kind of thing that I like, and that's the kind of thing that that Tibbs has definitely been bringing. So before we wrap up here, I want your prediction here. The biggest question of the night: are the New York Knicks going to make the playoffs this year, and can they win a round? And can they get to the second round in the playoffs this year? Is there a possibility they could pull an upset on one of these top 4 seeds?
Here's how I've always felt about the NBA. I feel like every team has a chance to make the playoffs. And I think the reason I say that is because, you're not playing LeBron James every night. You're not playing Giannis every night. There are some good shooting teams, some good lights out teams. But, I look at teams like Indiana, who had Victor Oladipo, all these players. You look at some of these teams that don't have superstars. For example, look at Toronto. They had one superstar, with all due respect to Kyle Lowry, but one perennial all-star on that team that carried that team. Kyle Lowry came on at the end of the year, but you look at Toronto, like they won a championship with strictly just Kyrie Irving. I mean, Van Vliet's great, but let's face it, Kawhi Leonard was, I said Kyrie, I meant Kawhi Leonard, superstar there. So I think there's always a chance. I think the Knicks do have a chance. They're going to have to grind it out. It's going to be a longer season, hopefully. But if they don't make the playoffs, I don't think it's cause for panic. I just think that Knicks fans are happy with knowing going into next season there's going to be an identity and a template of what they could do. Because let's face it, Nerlens Noel isn't going to be here much longer than a year or two. Austin Rivers isn't a full-time player here. You're going to need to find guys that can fit in this system and really drive it home. Because at the end of the day, Dunny, we talk about Boston a lot. Jay, I'm sorry I haven't talked about Cleveland a lot. I haven't really followed them too much. But I will say with Boston, they've got big decisions to make. But I think Stevens is going to have a job for the next 10 years there. Because if you go and you look at all the coaches in the NBA, who would you replace him with right now that's better?
No one. He's a basketball wizard. I can't stand when people slant. Like, obviously, that like the Celtics aren't perfect right now. I'll be the first to say it. That there's issues on the roster, there's issues, effort levels, but like you just said, that's the one thing that I'm always replying to people on Celtics Twitter. It's like, who are you going to replace him with? Like, Brad Stevens is a basketball wizard, whether you want to believe that or not. He's a great coach.
You know who he reminds me of a little bit? I think Stevens has the edge on this. He reminds me of Eric Spoelstra. Eric Spoelstra got lucky getting the big 3 there with Bosh, Wade, and LeBron James, and everyone's like, oh, it's because he has those players. But remember, when those guys left, Spoelstra still had that team as like an 8th seed. Yeah. And now when you look at that team, like, they play incredible basketball. So, like, I see Stevens as like a Spoelstra, like a guy that it's like, hey, can we do any better than this guy? No.
I mean, what he did with that Jay Crowder, Avery Bradley, Isaiah Thomas, that group of guys, like they had no business really being a playoff team, and let alone winning playoff games. Like, I think Stevens needs more credit than he gets, but
sure.
Yeah, I like that comparison for sure because Spoelstra is like top 2 head coaches in the entire league right now.
So we'll see, but to kind of sum it up there, I think they have a shot. I wouldn't be disappointed if they were, but could they beat a team in the first round? I think, and I treat everything like any given Sunday like football. I think any team's beatable.
Love that.
Look, and you talk about sports, other sports, look at the Tampa Bay Lightning the year before they won the Cup. First round exit, best team in hockey.
Yep.
I got swept.
And this year, and we were talking about it the other day on the preview too. Like this year, the middle class is better than I think it's ever been in the NBA. Like at least the last 10 years or so. Like the top teams are clearly the top teams, but the middle class can go and fight every single night. And so we're gonna have a really interesting time when the playoffs come. All right, Konzi, thank you so much for coming along here. Go ahead, plug whatever you need to plug here, and then we will wrap up this episode of Happy Hour Hoops. Happy Hour at Happy Hour tonight.
Yeah, just basically keep an eye out, www.trainwrecksports.com. We got a lot of good articles coming out. Dunny and Jake do a great job for us. Look out for their players of the week. Dunny does those regularly. Jake, you always have something to say. I know. I love it. Guys, really, we appreciate the support, and we're so happy to be a little more tapped into the NBA market here. So appreciate the work you guys do. Thanks for being part of the team, and I look forward to working with you guys. Also, shout out Manscaped. 20% off. Use the code word Trainwreck.
Yes, sir. All right. So that is it today for Happy Hour Hoops. Don't forget to follow us here at Happy Hour Hoops 1 on all our social platforms. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, like it, give us 5 stars, give us great reviews, everything, all the above, and enjoy the slate of games this weekend, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.